Welcome to Wizards Whimsy. I'm your host, Patrick. Welcome to a bonus episode. So today we're going to be talking about the brackets, the game changers. As most people are aware that Gavin introduced the brackets, the beta version of brackets last week. And, there's probably been tons of stuff out already. I thought I'd go ahead and put my take onto it. There are 5 brackets. Then there is a game changer list. And that's probably what we'll focus most on. As you can see in the brackets 1 through 5, they do mention the game changers. So instead of going through all of the brackets first, like everyone else seems to be doing, we're going to go ahead and go over the game changers so that when we're talking about the brackets, you know what those game changers are. So here are the game changers. There are 40 of them. There is some in each color, including colorless. So let's go ahead and run through those real quick. In white, you have Draenith Magistrate, which keeps your opponents from casting spells other than their hands. In Light and Tutor, you search for an enchantment or an artifact, and you put it on top of your library. Serra's Sanctum, you tap it for white mana for the number of enchantments you control. Smothering Tithe requires your opponents to pay 2 for each card they draw. Trouble in Pairs lets you draw cards based on whether you're being attacked by 2 creatures, your opponents cast their second spells, and it also prevents extra turns by your opponents. In blue, you have Cyclonic Rift, affectionately called Psych Rift, and usually it's followed by Overloaded. So it will bounce either one non-land permanent your opponent controls, or it will bounce all non-land permanents your opponents control. Expropriate gives your opponents a choice to either let you have a permanent of theirs or to take an extra turn. Force of Will, you pitch a blue card, you lose a life, and you can counter target spell without paying Force of Will's mana cost. Fierce Guardianship, as long as you control your commander, you don't have to pay Fierce Guardianship cost, and you counter a non-creature spell. Rhystic Study, whenever an opponent casts a spell, they have to pay an additional 1. If they don't, you may draw a card. Thassa's Oracles, whenever it enters the battlefield, you look at the top X cards where X is your devotion to blue. You put up to 1 of those into your hand, and if X is greater than or equal to your devotion to blue, you win the game. Urza Lord High Artificer, whenever he enters the battlefield, you create a 0/0 colorless construct artifact creature token with this creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact you control. Tap an untapped artifact you control, add a blue mana. You can pay 5, shuffle your library, then exile the top card. Until end of turn, you may play that card without paying its mana cost. Then you have Mystical Tutor. You can search your library for an instant or sorcery, and you put it on top of your library. Jin-Gitaxias Core Augur has Flash. At the beginning of your end step, draw 7 cards. Each opponent's maximum hand size is reduced by 7. Bolas Citadel is an artifact. You may look at the top card of your library anytime. You may play the top card of your library. If you cast a spell this way, pay life equal to its converted mana cost rather than pay its mana cost. It also has tap, sacrifice 10 non-land permanents. Each opponent loses 10 life. Demonic Tutor, search your library for a card, put it into your hand. Imperial Seal is a sorcery. Search your library for a card, then shuffle and put that card on top. You lose 2 life. Vampiric Tutor is essentially the same thing, except it is at instant speed. Opposition Agent, you control your opponents while they are searching their libraries. While an opponent is searching their library, you may exile each card they find. You may play those cards for as long as they remain exiled, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast them. Tirgrid, God of Fright, is a creature, 4/5 menace. When an opponent sacrifices a non-token permanent or discards a permanent card, you may put that card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. Ad Nauseam is an instant. Reveal the top card of your library and put that card into your hand. You lose life equal to its converted mana cost. You may repeat this process any number of times. Jessica's Will is a sorcery, and it has 2 modes, and if you control your commander, you can choose both modes. One mode is add 1 red mana for each card in target opponent's hand. The other one is exile the top 3 cards of your library, and you may play them this turn. Underworld Breach is an enchantment. It gives all of your cards in your graveyard Escape. Its escape cost is equal to its mana cost plus exile 3 cards. And in green, we have Survival of the Fittest. It is an enchantment. You pay a green, discard a creature card, search your library for a creature card, reveal that card, and put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. Vorinclex is a creature that has, whenever you tap a land for mana, add 1 mana to your mana pool of any type that land produced. Whenever an opponent taps a land for mana, that land doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. Gaia's Cradle, tap, add a green mana for each creature you control. Cannon is a creature. Whenever you tap a non-land permanent for mana, add 1 mana of any type that permanent produced. Has pay 7, 5 generic, a green and a blue. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may put a non-human creature card from among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Yuriko is a creature that has Commander Ninjutsu. Pay a blue and a black, return an unblocked attacker you control to your hand. Put this card onto the battlefield from your hand or the command zone tapped and attacking. Whenever a ninja you control deals combat damage to a player, reveal the top card of your library and put that card into your hand. Each opponent loses life equal to that card's mana value. You have Wynota, Joiner of Forces, which is also a creature. Whenever a non-human creature you control attacks, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may put a human creature card from among them onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking. It gains indestructible until end of turn. Put the rest of the cards on the bottom of your library in a random order. Grand Arbiter Augustine IV is a creature. White spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Blue spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Spells your opponents cast cost 1 more to cast. And finally, colorless. Ancient Tomb, it's a land. Tap, add 2 colorless mana to your mana pool. Ancient Tomb deals 2 damage to you. Chromox is an artifact that has imprint. When Chromox enters the battlefield, you may exile a non-artifact, non-land card from your hand. You can tap, add 1 mana of any color of the exile card's colors. The One Ring. When the One Ring enters the battlefield, if you cast it, you gain protection from everything until your next turn. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life for each burden counter on the One Ring. You can tap, put a burden counter on the One Ring, then draw a card for each burden counter on the One Ring. The Tabernacle at Pendervale has, all creatures have, at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice this creature unless you pay 1 mana. Trinisphere is an artifact that has, as long as Trinisphere is untapped, each spell that would cost less than 3 mana to cast costs 3 mana to cast. So it makes all your spells that are less than 3 to be 3 mana. Grim Monolith is an artifact. Grim Monolith doesn't untap during your untap phase. You can tap, add 3 colorless mana to your mana pool, or you can pay 4 to untap Grim Monolith. Lion's Eye Diamond is an artifact. Sacrifice Lion's Eye Diamond, discard your hand, add 3 mana of any 1 color to your mana pool. Play this ability as a mana source. Mox Diamond is an artifact. When Mox Diamond comes into play, choose and discard a land card or sacrifice Mox Diamond. It has add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Mana Vault is an artifact. Mana Vault doesn't untap during your untap step. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may pay 4 mana. If you do, untap Mana Vault. At the beginning of your draw step, if Mana Vault is tapped, it deals 1 damage to you. It has tap, add 3 colorless mana. Glacial Chasm is a land that has cumulative upkeep of 2 life. When Glacial Chasm comes into play, sacrifice a land. You cannot attack. All damage dealt to you is reduced to 0. So since we looked at the game changers, now we'll go ahead and take a look at the brackets real quick, and then we'll bounce back to the game changers. So in bracket 1, you have Exhibition. It's your ultra casual commander deck. No mass land denial or extra turns. No 2-card infinite combos. No game changers. Few tutors. Then in bracket 2, it is Core, your average current pre-constructed deck. No mass land denial. No chaining extra turns, no 2-card infinite combos, no game changers, few tutors. Then you go to bracket 3. 3 is upgraded, beyond the strength of an average pre-con deck. This is where they feel that most players will actually fall, is probably within bracket 3. It has no mass land denial, no chaining extra turns, late game 2-card infinite combo, and it has up to 3 game changers. Then in bracket 4, it is optimized. High power commander, it's time to go wild. No restrictions other than the ban list. Then you have bracket 5, CEDH. High power with a very competitive and meta game focused mindset. It also has no restrictions other than the ban list. So that is the main thing with the brackets. You really need to have the intent of what you're trying to do with the deck for it to actually fall into the proper bracket. Now, will these brackets work? Well, that's up to the players. If the players want the bracket system to work, it will work. If they don't want it to work, well, then they're just going to skirt the rules and skirt the requirements and be like, hey, it says it's bracket 1, even though it's probably punching at a 3 or a 4. But because you're able to, get the same effects without using game changers or even, any of the main tutors, you're able to actually play in that bracket 1, even though it punches a lot harder than what the bracket 1 is intended to. That's the main thing with the brackets, as I was saying. It deals with intent, what your purpose is, what are you thinking about the deck, where are you wanting it to play. All that goes into it. They can have lists of all kinds of cards, and players can skirt around them if they want to and still punch a lot higher than whatever bracket they are playing in. It's an honor system with the players because what your intent of the deck is. Now, if your intent is to just go out and stomp anyone in bracket 1 or to stomp anyone in bracket 2, you can build a deck to do that. But you're not really embracing the brackets if that's the way that you're playing. So that's why I say the brackets can work as long as the players want it to work. The final key point for the brackets, it's not for your play group. Let me say that again. It is not for your play group. If your play group has a play pattern that you play with, that is how you play, and you don't need to use the bracket system. The brackets is more for any pickup games, playing with new players, going to conventions and playing. It's making sure that everyone that you're interacting with is playing on the same level. But like I said, it is not for your tournament settings. It is not intended for your play group because your play group already has, how y'all play. You can actually use this and come up with decks to play in your play groups and to try to punch at each one of these levels. That'd be a fun little thing to do, but it's mainly for your pickup games and playing with strangers so that you're not discouraging someone that's new to Magic, new to Commander. It's trying to help grow the game and just basically be a good ambassador for the Commander format. I do feel that the game changers should be revised. Most of these cards on here I do not agree with as being game changers, not here by themselves. Now, to really make them game changers, they need other cards with them. So, for example, Thassa's Oracle. Well, Thassa's Oracle in a Merfolk tribal deck will be just fine. It's whenever you add the cards like Leveler or Tainted Pact or Demonic Consultation that all of a sudden now Thassa's Oracle is a problem and you're winning the game, and it's possible to win as early as turns 2 and 3, maybe even on turn 1, depending on if you got the God hand or not. So some of the cards that I do agree are game changers is Draenith Magistrate, Vornaclex Voice of Hunger, Grand Arbiter Augustine the Fourth. I do believe that those are game changers. The Tabernacle at Pendervale, and maybe even Jin Kataxis Core Augur, and Opposition Agent. I could see those as game changers because they're single cards that can just stop the game, that can just slow the game down, that can really just put that game way into your favor, as opposed to any of the other cards where they actually need something else with them. So with the game changer list, it should be combination of cards. Like, you shouldn't be playing this combination of cards unless you're in brackets 4 and 5. The Thassa's Oracle, Demonic Consultation, those combination of cards. Underworld Breach and Lion's Eye Diamond with Brain Freeze. So it's a 3-card combo. Maybe you shouldn't be playing that 3-card combo in anything that's less than a 4 or a 5. Put the combination of cards instead of the individual card. That way, yes, it'll broaden out what bracket 3 can do, but bracket 3 is so wide. There's such a huge gap between bracket 3 and bracket 4. So bracket 3 needs some attention. You may need to add another bracket into it to, as a transition piece, or maybe even 2 more brackets. I mean, being stuck that you don't want to do something that's 1 through 10. Well, when you're talking about power level 1 through 10, that's different than your brackets. Your brackets have defining qualities of what makes them this bracket. Those are my thoughts on, the brackets and the game changers. So go ahead and leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think about game changers, brackets, if you're going to try to build any decks to follow the brackets, or is your play group fine without this system in place? Leave a comment. Let me know what your thoughts are on that. And while you're there, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe button, and share this video out. So, make sure that you're leaving a comment, even if it's, hey, I like the intro. Hey, I like the hat. It doesn't matter. I do want to be interactive with the community and with the people that are viewing this video. So, give a shout out. And, until next time, keep slinging those spells.